Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novi-Williams, and this is the Hail to the Victors Valiant Sports Business Podcast, the Sporticast.
In my head, I didn't think of it, Eben. I was just like, here's the Hail to the Victor. I thought you should have just played it, frankly.
You like to do the play off your phone.
I do like to do the play off
thing. And shout out to Aaron, our producer, who fixes
Who
it
has
every
to
time
deal
we
with all
do
that.
it. I chose to just go with it myself. Did you watch the game, Scott? Michigan running away from Washington on Monday night?
Focus group of one was on the ice during the game, so I peeked out, and I think I saw it was like a 7-point game, and then I peeked out again in the fourth quarter when I think it was close. And then Michigan scored the touchdown, made it 14. I'm like, okay, that's over. Yeah. So I watched about a grand total of 4 minutes, but I felt I saw everything I needed to see.
Yeah, it was a football game, but obviously a big win for Michigan, one of the bluest of blue bloods in college football. A big win for the Big Ten.
You didn't say one of the maize and bluest of blue bloods? Nothing?
Maize and bluest of blue bloods. Big win for the Big Ten. Big win for Jim Harbaugh, who is
I
maybe...
thought Bo Schembechler had a really good game plan.
Nailed it, yeah.
Brady was good. Desmond Howard was great on defense.
Brandon Graham, good. I think that to me, Jim Harbaugh is the most interesting part of this story now. Got $1 million bonus for coaching Michigan to a championship. He is potentially in a lot of trouble with the NCAA. There are a number of outstanding investigations. He was suspended twice this past season, once voluntarily for a previous NCAA investigation.
There isn't a Michigan supporter out there who could give one rat's patoot.
Exactly.
I celebrated the championship. Go cheat. Do whatever you need to do.
But it has intrigue about what happens next year. Does Harbaugh return to Michigan? It seems like there are likely going to be some NFL suitors. NFL pays a little bit more even than top tier college football coaches make. Is that an option? How much do the investigations, including the investigations into the sign stealing scandal, which we don't know actually where the NCAA is still working on that. We have no idea where that stands currently. There's a lot of intrigue here about Jim Harbaugh, who could be the first coach since Tom Osborne. I saw this trivia question back at Nebraska a long time ago. First coach since Tom Osborne potentially to win a national title and not coach the team the following year.
Dare I say Mike Rozier and Scott Frost. Whatever, just any Nebraska that I could
just tossing out names
just
today.
Tossing out Nebraska
just
names.
Out names.
Yeah, I mean, who's the coach at Alabama?
Nick Saban.
Yeah.
I got that one, yeah.
How did he do with the Miami Dolphins?
Not well.
Yeah, what's unless he really needs to get out of Michigan, is there a better job than sort of your, all-knowing, sagacious leader of men, college football coach? I'm the champion. I beat Ohio State. Is there anything better than that? What does he get in the NFL? Unless he made a big deal about being able to sit at the big kids table now at Thanksgiving at the family. His brother's got a Super Bowl championship. Yeah. So, maybe he wants to add a college championship and a Super Bowl, and then he's at the head of the table. I don't know. But, man, unless he really needs to go, if he thinks there's some crazy punishment coming, what's the deal? Why go to the NFL?
And he's been in the NFL, obviously. He coached the 49ers for a few years. Had some decent seasons there. He is, in my mind, Scott, one of the kind of the platonic ideal of this football guy thing that you're talking about, where using the motivation of young men and molding them into adults and all that stuff. He does feel, at least rhetorically, very much like he fits better in college football than he does in the NFL. But yeah, I think there's two things here. There's the investigations, which we mentioned, and then there's the money. Sportico does, our colleagues Lev Akabas and Kurt Badenhausen do this list every year of the highest paid coaches in all of sports. And if you look at that list, the NFL is dominant. Bill Belichick, we can talk about him in a second, number one. Sean Payton, number two.
We have to update the list with Eric Spoelstra.
With Eric Spoelstra. I mean, he was on the list already,
I think.
Yeah, but we have Belichick
Carnival
at
Cruise
1,
money right there.
Sean Payton 2, Pete Carroll 4, McVay tied for 4th, Kyle Shanahan 7, Mike Tomlin 9, John Harbaugh 10. There is no college football coach on this list. So just to give you a sense of the scale there, yeah, if money is a factor here, then maybe there's another something kind of weighing down on the scale of maybe going back to the NFL as the play.
I don't know. I got to tell you, I don't get it. I would totally love the college life myself, but that's obviously just personal aspect. I get it, but unless he needs to go, I don't know. And what's the most attractive gig in the NFL that's open so far?
Tennessee.
Right.
Is New England open? Like, what is?
Well, it doesn't
what
look like
does that look like? I think we can see. Yeah, for sure. Another big storyline before we wrap up the national championship talk. This was the last year of the 4-team playoff. We're going to a 12-team playoff next year.
Will number 13 complain? That's my question.
Will number 13 will definitely complain.
Well, who's the number 13 FSU? That's what I want to know.
Exactly. It's going to be Utah next year. Mark my words.
Okay.
The 12-team playoff, currently media negotiations ongoing about what that looks like. Does ESPN own it all? Does somebody else pop in there? I think we're going to have some news on that. My guess is in the next few months. But very fascinated. I think a lot of folks around college sports are also very fascinated to see if, come bowl time next year, if ESPN has another media stranglehold over all 12 of the important games, or if adding a handful of new, really meaningful bowl games on top of the ones that already exist carves out room for another company, maybe Fox, maybe someone else, to spend money and get in there as well. So
if memory serves, the 25 million people tuned in for the national title game.
Okay.
Everything about it screams a professional endeavor, except for one thing. The FICA taken out of the paycheck of the players.
Yeah.
Everything screams this is a professional entertainment endeavor, except for the fact that the labor force is not paid. Unbelievable setup. What a setup.
Yeah, I don't know if you probably weren't watching the game because you didn't watch much of it, but there was a moment at the start of the fourth quarter where they showed J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, on the sideline getting a in-game check-in with the Michigan psych coach.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. To your point about how everything about this feels professional, yes, there is all the trappings of the kind of things, and maybe even more than some NFL teams give their players during games, etc.
This leads me to, since we mentioned Nick Saban and the fact that his team did not win the championship, will they next year have a left brain psych coach and a right brain psych coach? I would think those are two different approaches, Eben. And if you're going with one, you're not catering to the student athlete and making him the best that he or she can be.
Knowing nothing about this topic, my assumption is yes. If it might help them win, Alabama has the money to do it, and Alabama will probably try it. That is my official stance on left and right brain psychology.
Yeah. So what would be the difference? Like, what's the approach of the left brain, right brain? What, right brain more analytical, left brain more creative? Is that
true?
The general? I don't know. I'm asking. Do we know?
I have no idea.
But I'd love that. I mean, you could have a really fun skit with that happening. Like, I'd really like to see what the conversation would be.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of a story you and I wrote a decade ago, maybe more, back at Bloomberg, about how a lot of teams were scanning players' brains and trying to get a sense of how they learn things.
How they learn, yeah.
Yeah, and some of that's probably left brain and right brain too, but some people learn by physically walking through a play.
Well, let me tell you, Eben,
learn by drawing it on the board.
Yeah, when you have a kid and you tell that child what to do about whatever it is, and that child looks at you, does it wrong 57 times, and then looks at you like, what are you talking about? And then you're like, you know what? Let me show you. And then that child picks it up in 2 seconds. Oh, why didn't you just say that? I'm like, I did. You really understand that there is something to how people learn. My focus group of one, man, show them. Don't tell them, show them. And then it's fine.
We had a conversation with Rich Rodriguez, who at the time back
Arizona,
then was coaching at Arizona. Yeah, he was talking about
this?
It's
Wow,
crazy.
yeah.
I know. Yeah. He was talking about his quarterback room. I think there were 3 or 4 quarterbacks, and he was like, "Yeah, I now know which guys again need to walk through a play on the field, which guys need to see X's and O's on a board, which guy wants to see it written out to him." Knowing the best way to optimize the way that especially younger athletes, I think, are approaching a lot of these things is an optimization. And if it was happening a decade ago, it's happening more now. But this is, again, one of those areas where colleges that are flush with money, like Alabama and like Michigan, are flexing their money in those advantages, largely or partially at least, because there's not a huge line item, as you said, Scott, for paying the people who are actually playing the games.
Continuing with the professional football discussion, this other small pro league, it's called the NFL.
I heard of it, yeah.
Anthony Krupe tells us that they did a record $4.5 billion with a B in-game ad revenue for the NFL partners this season. $4.5 billion in-game ad revenue for the NFL, making everybody you pay through the nose for your affiliation with the NFL. These networks, you have to have it. This is must-have programming. And I mean, just ask NBC when they said they thought they didn't have to have it, and then they did have to have it.
And then they did, yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know what? Maybe we do. But there seems to be good return on investment for everybody in this deal.
Without question. And the number keeps going up for what the NFL gets paid, and I'm sure the advertising number keeps going up as well. I believe this was the most watched NFL season since 2015, I think was the number in that Anthony Krupe story, if I'm remembering correctly. And we didn't talk about it last show, Scott, but we put out that list of the 100 most watched TV
Let's chart, man.
games
People wait for this chart.
Of 2023, most watched U.S. TV events of 2023, and 93 of them were NFL and 96 of them were football.
Yeah.
Which is even bigger than in years past when football has dominated these charts. So
how high can it go? Can they ever do 100? I mean, you got the Academy Awards in there. You got some other stuff in there. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And this is one of the weird things. I wonder why I did this. I am sort of anti-sponsor. Like, I don't often say the name of the sponsor in something. But I could have just said the Thanksgiving Day Parade, but I said the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. They've done something really right if it's so ingrained in my left or right brain that I went that way. I wonder why I did that.
We get complaints a lot from people who are like, "Oh, why'd you call it the Fiesta Bowl and not the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl?" Or
I remember the Pool and Weed Eater Bowl. That one I like. I did it because I just like to say it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then you get groups like the G League, right? When Gatorade bought the D League, the development league for the NBA, bought the rights there and renamed the thing, so you had no option but to call it the G League. Yeah, there's some interesting. This is a tangent that we can get off of, but there's some interesting presenting name sponsorship that gets around. I think both you and I have this proclivity to avoid the brand name as much as possible.
Yeah, and obviously the Dallas Cowboys lead the way there. You want people in eyeballs, just throw the Dallas Cowboys on. They're in the playoffs. We've got our team set. Did we talk about the Amazon game? I don't remember if we talked about just the Kansas City and Miami.
The Peacock game.
I'm in Peacock. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we did.
I believe we did. Yeah,
Peacock only. Yeah.
Yeah. Taylor Swift fans are going to have to pay up if they want to see 50 cutaway shots of her watching Travis Kelce play in the playoffs, at least in the first round. We talked about it, but there's so much interesting little things happening in NFL media right now. This idea that they are just the big TV partners and that's it is evaporating, and they're really trying things. Again, we talk a lot about the NFL being able to sit there and wait and see what other leagues are doing. There are some areas where the NFL is leading, and this is one. Putting a playoff game here exclusively on a streaming service, making it there's no other way to watch it. That is something that, to my knowledge, the NBA has never done.
Want to guess the number? What would that game do? What would you if that was on whatever? Pick your linear TV network. Doesn't matter. ESPN, NBC doesn't matter. Yeah. If it was, how many people do you think are watching that game?
I mean, I am definitely the wrong person to ask, but
25 million?
Yeah, I was going to say between 25 and 35 would be my guess.
Now give me what are you going to get on Peacock? You're breaking 10?
No, I don't think so.
Less than 10. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the Amazon Thursday night games exclusively on Amazon average like 11 or 12 this year, right? We could be way off on these numbers. Media and certainly ratings is not a strong suit of yours or mine. But if I'm right about that, if Amazon was in the 11 or 12 average range, it's a playoff game, so there's more interest.
Yeah, you got Taylor.
Fewer people have it, right? Amazon, a lot of people have Prime Video.
Popular quarterback. Yeah.
Much smaller.
And the interest, by the way, did you see the temperature?
No, is it freezing? Is it really cold?
Is it freezing? How about ready? I believe I saw this somewhere. I'm hoping this is accurate. If not, oh well, whatever. But I saw 0.
Okay, yeah, that's a low
That's
number.
cold.
Yeah,
that's cold. I want to see what's his name, the Giants coach when he had his face freezing in Green Bay.
Tom Coughlin.
Coughlin's freezing face. He should have rubbed Vaseline all over it. That was great.
I was at the Jaguars. Chiefs playoff game last year at Arrowhead. It was very cold then too. It just felt right though. It felt like Arrowhead. It just NFL playoffs. It felt way more right than being in Dallas for a playoff game when the roof is closed or when it's 60, 70 degrees outside.
You know what doesn't feel right? Let's see if you get the segue. What doesn't feel right? You're looking down at our topics.
Think of what our topics are here.
It doesn't feel right that the state of California will not benefit in any way, shape, or form from Shohei Ohtani's deal with the Dodgers. Not in any way, shape, or form, but as much as most people thought they would for a guy who's going to be bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. And our friends at California, and I thought it was pretty cute. When I said,
our friends, the controller of California,
our friends
our good
in California,
buddy.
the controlling board there, that they want Congress. Oh, here we go, somebody else appealing to Congress to take a peek at the structure of the deal. That Ohtani and the Dodgers have deferred so much of compensation there that he will not be paying taxes to California. So
this is the least surprising story we may publish.
You knew this was coming. You just didn't know. Yeah. How many politicians we're going to run into? We need our money. Yeah, absolutely.
For folks who aren't familiar with the exact numbers, Shohei Ohtani signed a $700 million deal with the Dodgers. $680 million of that is deferred. So he will make he'll make just $20 million over the first decade, and then starting in 2034 to 2043 will be paid the other $680 million. And there's been a theory out there, and we don't know if this was a motivating factor or if he was even planning to try to get around the taxes, but there's a theory out there that through California tax code, which allows for I'm trying to think of it, retirement income, I think is the exact vague phrase that they're using, but some deferred payment is able to not be taxed at the time, that he could theoretically move to a different state, let's say Nevada, where there's no income tax, or move back to Japan, whatever it is. He could be somewhere else and end up not having to pay the California tax on that. California, as we said, is already being proactive in trying to make sure that it does not that Shohei is not able to take that away. It's fascinating, Scott. Again, there's a part of me that wonders if this was part of the plan at all, or if he had no intention.
It was part of the plan.
You think so? Yeah.
I think one, it helped the Dodgers, and two, it helped Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and there's other ways in which deferring the money theoretically helps. Maybe not Shohei, but it certainly helps the Dodgers. I could see arguments for other things here, but it seems like California is not waiting to try to find out. They are trying to make it very clear, and it seems rightfully so. Right? There's so much around very rich people trying to avoid taxes. California, I think, was the state that instituted the jock tax.
Yeah.
Right, which was a very scalpel approach to figuring out where athletes were when they made their money and making sure that each of those states gets proper compensation for it. It feels hard to believe that he is, if he wants to, going to get away with not paying taxes on 680 of the $700 million contract, but crazier things have happened, absolutely.
I had absolutely no intent of bringing this up, but you just used the term scalpel approach.
Yeah.
So you want to tell our listeners about your sort of rusty scalpel approach to...
Oh, my gosh.
Go ahead. Give a quickie as to...
I want people to turn off the...
no, just give a quickie like what you chose to do, because I looked at you
device.
like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I have a wart on my foot that I've been trying to remove, and I decided to very aggressively with a pumice stone and a chisel
is the right word.
Get the thing off. And I'm hoping the wart is gone, but I now have just a gaping hole on the bottom of my foot. So
I would
apologize for the squeamish folks out there. I did not want to bring this up either. Scott chose.
Well, you
to
said
bring
scalpel.
This up because I said
scalpel.
scalpel.
You said scalpel. Now I'm thinking of Dempsey and record field goal kicking, if you know what I'm talking about. So if you do, you do. If you don't know, go look it up. NASCAR, by the way. They have a NASCAR series now. Netflix and NASCAR.
Yeah.
We already have Drive to Survive. We know that. We have golf. We have tennis. Similar to the NBA now getting involved, 5 players, similar to what we're seeing on the quarterbacks.
Including LeBron, right?
LeBron, Jason
players.
Tatum, Jimmy
big
Butler, Anthony Edwards, Domantas Sabonis. I'm just like, when does it just thin too much? Like, how much of this do I need?
I think we're at that point now. The caveat,
you're there already.
Yeah, I think we're definitely there. The caveat I will say is that I think for general fans of these things, I think we're past saturation point. For avid fans of the NBA or avid fans of, let's just say, Jason Tatum or LeBron James, this is going to be catnip. I learned this lesson last year, Scott, when Netflix put out the Tour de France documentary. Mm-hmm. And I have been over these sports documentaries for a while, even at that point.
Sucked you in, though.
And I was like, this is amazing. I love the Tour de France. I love professional cycling. I thought the Netflix show was amazing. We watched every single episode of it. I am done watching these things casually. I'm not going to watch the NBA one for sure. So I think that in some ways, if the goal was to get new people in, like Drive to Survive got a lot of credit for, and we can debate the merits of that. Yes, I think we're at a point now where there's just too many for average sports fans to be like, oh, I want to learn about the NBA. Let me pop this on. But I think for NBA fans, and there's a cult, there are big personalities here. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Jason Tatum, or Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum. There are big personalities here. This is going to be a success among NBA fans. I'm almost certain of it.
Well, we should just ask Lev Akabas. Are you going to watch this? And we'll probably get our review after each episode.
Yeah, he's a perfect example, right? Because I don't think you or I are going to watch this. We're casual NBA fans, maybe. But I think for the avid fans, I think this becomes an important piece of programming. One of the interesting things I think, Scott, is we'll see, but it doesn't seem like Netflix is going to be a serious interest for the NBA's live rights, which are up right now as well. And I know there have been talks in previous for different leagues at some point, and maybe even the NBA, of maybe bidding for live rights in addition to
Netflix wants to own IP,
having the TV property. But Netflix seems, at least for now, hanging on to this idea that their sports content can be this either scripted or unscripted documentary series style, and not live games themselves.
Own and do not rent, which makes me think, by the way, going back to Ohtani, like, do you think a lot of professional athletes, and I don't know why my brain works this way, Eben, but it's like it just does. Do you think a lot of professional athletes look at their financial statements like, oh, I've got $7,000 in a Roth IRA, somewhere, and then I hit the income limit because I signed my contract or whatever, and I can't contribute anymore. And what am I doing? I think 5 years later you can take that money out, but then there's the initial investment is just sitting there, and now they can't participate anymore.
I would imagine Shohei Ohtani pays someone to worry about all of that stuff.
Yeah. I would be really curious to know. I'm going to make it my mission to find out if Shohei Ohtani, in any way, shape, or form, has a Roth.
I would love to read that story.
Yeah,
our managing editor Matt Bach loves to tell this story. I believe when he was with Oakland, when Ricky Henderson at one point, the Oakland A's were balancing their books at the end of the year and realized that there was $1 million unaccounted for, and they scrambled trying to figure out what it was, and eventually found out that Ricky Henderson had never cashed his bonus check, his signing bonus check. It was $1 million, and he had instead framed it and put it on his wall. And they were like, Ricky,
it's not the $20 bill on the wall, dude. Come on,
$1 million check. You should. And this is back in the late 80s, I think. But I always think that's funny. Just thinking about the various ways in which athletes think about their checks and their money, and how different it is from how you or I would treat a check of even a percentage point of the same value.
Well, Ricky would have been smart then. What if he got in on Bruin Capital and he decided to buy a marketing firm out of London? The Two Circles.
Good transition, Scott. Good transition.
Thank you. Let's say Ricky wanted to help $40 million for 80% of the company. And guess what? Selling it over $300 million now. So that's pretty good return from our friends over at Bruin. Congrats, George Pine.
In less than a decade, if you buy something, 80% of something for $40 million and it sells for $300,
that's more than
pretty good. Yeah. Even if you pump money into the company, you're coming out a winner. Congrats to George, the folks at Bruin. Congrats to the folks at
a lot of exits
Circles.
On location, Delta Tray.
A lot of exits. And Two Circles is one of those companies, Scott, that I think fans are probably not going to recognize, but they work with everybody. It's across sports. Two Circles is a sports data and marketing firm. The client list is extensive and it's long. One of those companies that is a kind of a juggernaut behind the scenes of how sports teams, sports leagues, media companies find fans and keep them.
Well, I think if it's out of your purview, very big in Europe. And trying to make headway into the United States, and we're seeing that. We see that from a lot of the sports betting companies, a lot of the content companies that are just big elsewhere and trying to utilize sports or whatever it is here in the U.S. But even as a white label company, sometimes you promote the clients more than you do yourself.
Totally, I think
that'd be interesting to see what happens from here on.
And as you know, the NFL is maybe most notorious in this, but there's a lot of their sports leagues are very, very, very judicious about whose logo appears next to theirs, and there's a lot of partners of a lot of these leagues that you never hear about because they don't have the press release, they don't do the logo lockup, they don't have the activation at the Super Bowl, whatever it is. I think there, especially when you're on that side of things handling data, I think there is a certain anonymity that a lot of leagues prefer their partners to maintain. So in some ways, it becomes a personal marketing challenge to get your name out there in the same way.
All right, we didn't prepare for this. Not that we prepare that much at all, but what the hell? Connor Bedard not going to be in the All-Star game probably because of his broken jaw. This is just bad for hockey. You know me, I love hockey, but there's something has to happen with the culture of this game. It wasn't a dirty hit on Connor, I get it, but you see so many. Just this whole culture of oh, you did this, I got to go beat the hell out of you, and then I got to retaliate, beat the hell out of you, and I'm going to target. Who was it? I forgot. Whatever the players. Did you see? One of the players was mic'd up when he was told, like he was high got a high stick in the face on the face off on purpose.
I do, yeah. That's actually a fascinating.
It's insanity.
Was Minnesota Wild forward Ryan Hartman and Winnipeg Jets forward Cole Perfetti.
How do you know that? Whoa, time out. How do you know?
Well, I just looked it up because I know what you're talking about, but I wanted.
Okay. Because I saw the clip. I didn't pay close attention to it, but when I saw him bring the stick right up in the face, I'm like, what is wrong with you? And by the way, if I may, years ago, I asked Gary Bettman about eliminating fighting in hockey. And you know his reason to me why he said, no, you don't want to do that is because if you take away fighting, he said, it's going to get increased stick work. Players are going to use the sticks instead. Right. And I was like, one, you mean to tell me that these people can't control themselves, like they have to beat you up with a stick if they don't fight? And two, this proves it's not true because you can fight. He could have fought him, but no, he decided to bring the stick right up in his grill anyway. Unbelievably stupid.
Folks, if you're curious, you should Google it because it's actually interesting. But yeah, so Ryan Hartman, who's on the Wild, right off a face-off, high stick Cole Perfetti in the face. Scary.
By the way, a good young player in this league that people want to see.
If it had reached his eye, would have been really terrifying and potentially very bad for Cole Perfetti. And there is talk about maybe it was direct retaliation for Minnesota Wild, his teammate Kirill Kaprizov getting hurt earlier. Cole Perfetti wasn't involved in that at all.
Had nothing to
do with it. It was just like retribution for a different player.
You hit my best player, I got to go to your young player.
I'm going to hit your... Cole Perfetti was mic'd up at the time. There's a little bit of back and forth about whether on the mic Ryan Hartman told him directly that he hit him in the face just because his teammate had been hit by one of Cole's teammates earlier in the game. There's a little bit about back and forth about what exactly did happen, but I agree with you. The retributive culture within the NHL, and you see this a lot. You see good players get hit cleanly, and they end up on the ice, and it is by culture in some ways in the NHL imperative for somebody to defend that player, even if he was hit cleanly. So you can hit a good player cleanly and end up having to fight, or worse, get a stick to the face perhaps, just because that's the way that hockey works. I do think that there's an ugly undercurrent here that when you tease out the reasoning for having these unwritten rules does not make sense. And if I was the NHLPA, if I was the union, this would be high on my list of concerns.
Mr. Walsh,
right now.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Now Connor Bedard, everybody wants to see Bedard. Everybody wants to see Bedard. And now, by the way, it happens to be in Toronto, it's just signature hockey market. And in all likelihood, he won't be there playing.
And they're doing the it's a new skills competition this year, right?
Where shine at,
everybody participates, right? Everyone does every event. Yeah. So instead of years past when you have let's say Connor Bedard does one event, he either does the accuracy shooting or the fastest skater, etc. I think the structure this year is that it's kind of like a decathlon in the Olympics. It's like everybody's doing everything. You get points for how you do, and you're crowning the most skilled of a very elite group of NHL All-Stars. I think it's a great setup. I think fans would love to have seen Connor Bedard against Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby maybe against some of the other huge stars in the league competing in all of these skills competitions. And it's definitely a bummer that it's not going to happen.
All right, you're a sports betting aficionado. I ask that I please get, and you can help me because I don't even have the app anymore. I'm not going to name the brand. I'm just going to be agnostic on this one. $5, please, on Matt Barzal.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
For the all-around, okay, I like it.
5 on Matty Barzal.
Very good.
Okay.
We'll talk about that when it happens. We'll see if Scott can turn his 5 into. Let's put the odds.
Hey, I grew up an Islander fan. You know.
Turn your 5 into 35. Or into 30. He is Scott Soshnick. You can find him on Twitter at Soshnick.
Kalur,
naming names
Gillies,
at this point. I am Evan Novi-Williams. You can find me on Twitter at Novi_Williams. Aaron Greenewald produces the show. Thank you very much to Aaron. Sporticast digital media editor Cora
Longevin.
Would like you to know that you can follow the show at Sporticast, which is the hub.
Morrow. Olympic gold and Stanley Cup in the same year. My God.
Network.